Hello and welcome to the Creative Life Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Qureshi, but you can call me Q. All right, Taz, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
So I haven't seen your face in real life for, gosh, 2, 3, 4 years. Probably South by
Definitely
was
since
the
the
last time.
pandemic,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
can't believe it's been that long.
yeah. Me either. Well, the thing about social media is that you actually kind of feel like you're still in touch with people, even though you're not,
Yeah,
which is good and bad because clearly there's more to you in your life than what I see on Instagram, but I still feel like I have some connection with you. So I don't know. You tell me.
no, I think what you're seeing on Instagram is pretty much it. I don't think I'm doing anything else in my life, honestly, is where I'm at right now.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. Well, you are doing so many things. Like uh, I was saying before we started the recording, you are and have been for as long as I've known you. And it's been well over a decade, probably a decade and a
Oh,
half.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah. So as long as I've known you, you have been doing creative shit that is amazing. Like like
yeah.
cutting edge anywhere that you can be pushing an envelope and doing something new and interesting, you're doing it. And you're one of those rare creatives that has just like you do visual, you're a writer, you do everything. Yeah, and I
I
mean,
do a
I'm sure
lot.
if you took up pottery, it would be amazing also.
No. I took one pottery class. I was terrible at it. That
Okay,
was the
good.
probably where my medium ends.
Well, not you can't do all of
I
it,
can't
I
do
guess.
everything. Okay.
That's cool. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I want to ask is just like a little icebreaker question,
Sure.
and then we'll jump into talking about your creative history and then what you're doing right now. So the icebreaker question I have for you is, what was the last book that you read?
Oh my gosh, what was the last book that I read? I was trying to read Kazim Ali's book. He has a book about like where he writes about Ramadan
Oh,
every day.
yeah.
So uh that is the book I'm in. The way he has his book set up is it was like one Ramadan and he basically has diary entries for every day. And every
Oh,
Ramadan, I always go back to that book. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna finish it during Ramadan. But the thing that I always keep forgetting is that when you're in Ramadan, you're just like in such a different state of mind that like you can't actually read anything because you're just not all here.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
will finish that this week, I think, now that Ramadan's over.
Oh, that's great. Ramadan
Pay
Mubarak, by the
attention.
way. I should have
Ramadan
said that
Mubarak.
right away. Um, what's the title of the book?
I don't know. Wait,
Okay.
do you want me to look it up? Are you gonna edit this?
No, you don't have to look it up. I'll find it. I'll find it.
It's something
I
like
just
Iftar every day or something. I don't know what it's called, but Kazim Ali,
that's
that's the
cool.
writer.
That's cool. Okay. All right, that's fair. And it's a nonfiction book and it's kind of inspirational, I guess. That was
Yeah,
nice.
it's a prose. It's him going through the course of Ramadan for him.
Very cool. So, one of the cool things, speaking of Ramadan, that we can talk about a little bit to jump off is you ages ago. I can't remember when you started doing it, but one Ramadan a few years ago, you decided to do poetry, like organize like a poetry or a poem a day, right? A poem a
Yeah,
day group. So you had like this online group, and anyone could join. And the idea was to write a poem a day
yeah, poem a
during
day.
Ramadan. So when did you start to do that? And like, what was the impetus for that?
Yeah, I started that like after my mom died. She died in
Mm.
2011, and um, I grew up fasting for Ramadan, but uh it always felt kind of dogmatic in the way that
Mm.
like I was raised. And I shouldn't say that completely. Like it was really nice to like grow up and like go to the mosque at night for Tarawih prayer and stuff. But by then I was like in my early 30s and I just like had lost a lot of like the connection, like the spiritual feelings. And I was also like deep in like writing a lot or trying to write a lot. So I decided that like I would try to write a poem a day for the month of Ramadan because that was how I get my spiritual connection is. And I think that's also that's very Muslim.
Hmm.
Islam is like rooted in poetry. And so I was doing it, and then I think I had like a blog spot back then, and I was posting all my poems on Blogspot, and other people were
Yep.
like, "Oh, that's so sounds so cool. I want to do it with you." And so then I had like, I think the first year I had like a couple people do it with me. I don't even remember who joined me. And then after that, I was like, okay, let me just like create a Facebook group because we were all on Facebook in the early 20 teens. And so in the Facebook group, I like invited people, but also I'm like such a big political activist. I was like, I can't have anyone COINTELPROing, my group. I can't have surveillance. So I was like really strict. It was like everyone in the group had to be verified as a real person.
Wow.
Like someone had to have like seen who they were. I didn't let strangers into that group. Um, and then like no one was allowed to just be a lurker. Like everyone had to contribute. So like the rule was like you had to like both introduce yourself and like had to post once a week. And then if you didn't post, then you were booted from the group because I didn't want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to like create a safe space
Yeah.
that outside of surveillance. And it
Yeah.
kept growing.
No.
Like by the end of it, Amanda, like we had like so many people. Everyone was writing, everyone was commenting. It was amazing.
Wow. So,
And the group's still going on. It's just like not vibrant anymore, and everyone moved off of Facebook. So
yeah.
I created a Discord, but like no one's active on Discord in this group. And like even I like it takes a lot for me to like open up Discord to moderate. So I think
Yeah.
maybe the project's come to an end.
No, that's okay because something really great has come out of it, aside from just the experience, right?
Yeah, the my book got published a couple weeks ago.
Amazing.
It's taking all the poems that I wrote over the course of this decade of doing this project, and I've been trying to pitch it to publishers for like 3 or 4 years, and I finally found
Hmm.
one that like wanted it. I'm really excited to be able to share my poems. It's also like weird, I have to say, to share poems that you've written over the course of 10 years because I feel like I obviously love my newer poems than my
Hmm.
older poems, like as any artist. But
Sure.
so like when you read the book, there's like old poems I'm like that I kept in there because I wanted to um keep the integrity of the written over the course of 10 years
Yeah.
aspect of it.
Yeah.
Uh, so like if you read the book, you'll get like you'll get Deep in Grief Taz from 2013, or you'll get
Uh-huh.
like Taz who was really obsessed with rocks during the pandemic poems during
Yeah.
2021.
Yeah. That's amazing. How many poems did you end up selecting for the book?
It's 100-page book.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah,
But
you got a lot in there.
when you do the math, if I had actually like written a poem a day, it should have been like 4,700 for the course of 10 years. So the
Yeah,
book's
yeah.
not that big.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some Ramadans where I just didn't write. So it
Yeah.
wasn't true to the 4,700 number, but
No, no. Well, like that's just the way it is. Like, and that I
that's,
think that
yeah,
actually is way more accurate of a reflection of what Ramadan is like, right? Because nobody
totally.
does it perfectly every time, and it's very different every time, right?
It's so
Especially
different every
because it
time.
moves around the calendar. So there's a different vibe every year. And so yeah, I feel like that kind of not mixed bag, but just sort of like diverse and obviously and then you take over the period of a decade, you are going to have a lot of variety of, how your poetry sounds and feels. And I actually really like that. I think that's an accurate representation as opposed to like curating this perfect little bundle that is supposed to just capture a single moment in time.
Yeah, I agree too. I love the idea that it's like it was written over 10 years. And I don't know, when I read, I'm just like I can see like changes in my writing and changes in my spirituality too. Like I think I was really trying to grasp at things differently over the course of the 10 years. And I think that's kind of an interesting snapshot to like look at. I'm also
Yeah.
like thinking about this because I am reading Kazim's book, and Kazim's book is written over the course of one Ramadan. So his book really kind of charts out like hourly
Yeah.
his Ramadan experience for that 1 year.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting because like mine is very much charting the the stages of Ramadan experience. But the other thing that happened to us is in 2016 we started having more Islamophobia in society. And
Yeah.
so like it was very targeted around Ramadan. So the poems got way more political because we were responding to a lot of hate crimes that were happening in
Hmm.
2017, 2018, 2019 that were happening against Muslims. So that's also kind of like it's also like marking um, this particular political moment that we as Muslims were experiencing in America.
Yeah. 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 And in fact, I think your work in general is really good about reflecting the realities of life for American Muslims, even if you're not specifically trying, like in this case, you're doing a Ramadan themed book, but
Yeah.
even your non, holiday or religious centered stuff has a lot of passion and a lot of just a reflection of who you are as a person, which is you were born uh here, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. I was
Yeah,
born
yeah,
and raised in LA.
yeah.
I don't think
To
people understand that people actually are born in LA, but I was born and from LA.
yeah, that's true. I thought everybody just moved there at some point. um
No.
okay, so you were born in LA, but you were born into a Bangladeshi Muslim family,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
And you had extended family as well, not just your immediate family.
Yeah, yeah. My aunt was out here and my uncle. Yeah. So I mean when Bangladeshis move, they kind of move as a group. I
Hmm.
guess that's true of like most like people who are migrant
Yeah,
families. They all kind of like congregate around a city.
yeah, for sure. And so talk to me about, with that as the frame. And that's a really, actually really cool and unique sort of frame. You're this young, you know, brown girl who is from LA, very conscious of popular culture, very hip, really kind of, I know in your past you had that whole kind of punk vibe when you were a kid. You still kind of retain some of that edge as an adult. And um, and at the same time, you're part of this Muslim family, and you have these values that come from another culture, and family and religion that influences your work. So all of that together makes you a really unique voice. Talk to me about your artistic journey. At what point did you discover that this was a calling for you, that you needed to be able to create in order to be who you are?
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of the things I write a lot about is that even though, like, as a Bangladeshi, as a South Asian, there's this kind of narrative that, like, we're raised to be doctors and engineers.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I also, like, was raised in a household where my mom made all my clothes, and I would take all the scraps of clothes and turn them into Barbie
Uh-huh.
clothes. And I, grew up going to the library and just reading st stories all the time. And my dad doesn't, like, draw anymore, but I grew up watching him doodle. We grew up having these like Bengali like song parties. We'd go to like someone's house and then like some auntie would pull out the harmonium and someone would start singing. And so like for as much as like we're the larger narrative is that like we aren't supposed to do arts, we were actually raised around a lot of arts. I
Hmm.
think it's very like South Asian to like we all have like a South Asian friend that would like learn Bharatanatyam growing up, like
Uh-huh.
we were
Uh-huh.
taught dancing and singing, so it was just a part of who our culture, but it just wasn't explicit. Or they don't see themselves as artists. This was just like part of who they are. They don't like claim
Yeah.
to be an artist. They're just happen to know harmonium and know how to sing songs or like draw or whatever. So I kind of was drawn to that. I also think about like how like we talk about like craft, when like when indigenous people make art, it's called craft instead of art. So I think
Yeah.
also think about like that aspect of it. It's like just um because it's folk or it's craft, it's not like highbrow art. So I do th spend a lot of time thinking about that. Anyways, so I feel like I was raised kind of like in this way where art was always constantly around me.
Hmm.
Um, but I did go to school to be like an engineer. I went and then like I dropped out of dropped out of being an engineer major because I failed physics like
Uh,
twice.
uh.
So I became an environmental studies with a focus on chemistry major at USC, University of Southern
Wow.
California. And I didn't like when I was at that age when I was in college, I like didn't want to be an artist. I wanted to be an activist. I chose
Yeah.
environmental studies because I wanted to save the world because I didn't like people, so I thought I could do it through saving trees.
Aw.
Um, and then I w went to DC to work in activism, and 9/11 happened like 3 months after I moved out to DC, like my
Oh,
first year
damn.
out of college. And I was like thrown into this world of like doing electoral organizing for South Asian Americans. And like I was like very much like I didn't really see the power of organizing brown people until 9/11 happened. And then I was like, "Oh, here I am in DC organizing people to have a voice around the environment." And I was going to all these college campuses and I was organizing these like white hippie kids to get out the vote. And no
Uh-huh.
one was doing it for South Asian Americans. And it was like, just months after 9/11 had happened. And I knew that we like needed to organize ourselves and have power for ourselves. So that's when I started doing South Asian American organizing. But one of the things that like slowly happened in that like in my throughout my 20s was like as I was organizing South Asian Americans, I was like, okay, what kind of like marketing or outreach can we make to grab South Asians to compel them to vote? So
Ah.
then I would like would write like an essay here, or like I like designed these stickers that said I'm South Asian and I vote, or like flyers for the organization. And that was it. That was basically it. Was like me trying to figure out like, okay, if we're trying to mobilize a community, how do we create things that will excite and make voting seem cool and empower for South Asians? And that's kind of like how I started my journey of like really being like at the intersection of like brown organizing and brown art. Because I
Wow.
really started thinking about like, you know, like what is it about our culture that can like, or cultural nuances that can draw people out to see that they're being specifically spoken to and being specifically empowered.
Yeah. That's very cool. It's also really interesting to me that you weren't like a lot of people I talk to about their creativity. They're like, "Oh, yes, I knew when I was 3 that I was destined to do this." And it seems like you kind of discovered this later as an adult,
Oh, totally.
initially as sort of like a useful thing to help you with what you were doing, and then it blossomed into something else, something larger. I mean, I think you still use your art
Yeah,
for statements, political statements or whatever, but I think it's much more all encompassing now as far as an activity that you do and as a part of who you are, part of your public persona.
totally. Yeah. When I was in my 20s, I like had like a like I was like my political organizing is one thing, and then like the poems I write in my bedroom are another thing. Like they were very separate. One was very
Mm,
external, one was very internal. Then I went to grad school where I learned about critical race theory and I learned about telling counter narratives of your communities and how telling the counter narratives is about like putting putting voice to stories that like the secret stories of our communities that are never told.
mm.
Um, and that's really like what kind of like encouraged me, like, okay, like we need to tell our own stories so that we can empower ourselves and be on the map. And that then I like really I think that was like also like when we were all blogging, right? Like so then
Uh-huh.
like I really found power in blogging, and I was like blogging all the time about different things that were happening in my life. I was very, very active in trying to like craft narratives out of my real life. And then that turned into a whole thing, like, right? Like I
Yeah.
started becoming a nonfiction essay writer, which is, like when all said and done, even though I'm like participating in all of these like different forms of art, like I am a writer who
Mm.
makes art. I don't really consider myself a visual artist or um like alone. Like I am very much like a writer who uses like other forms of art to kind of enhance the narratives I'm trying to tell, which kind of
So
helps me figure that out.
in addition to the poetry book that you've just published, how many other times have you written a book or been published
So I'm
in
working on
print?
like I'm definitely like constantly like pretending like I'm working on my memoir. When the pandemic started, I was like, I'm gonna finish a book like in 2 years, and that definitely didn't happen.
I see, I
I'm in
see.
I'm in a lot of anthologies. The first
Hmm.
anthology I was in was called Love Inshallah, The Secret Love Lives of American Muslim Women. And that came out in 2011. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm writing this. It's so like uh, it was like challenging for me to like put my personal narrative out there like that. And now it's like so easy. Like I feel like I'm like the format of telling your own stories is something that a lot of people are doing. I think I've
Yeah,
been published in like seven anthologies.
that's amazing.
I
That's
was like
amazing.
averaging like one a year for a while.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about this because one thing that I've noticed about, because I'm married to a South Asian person, and so I spend a lot of time in that community. And one of the kind of overarching sort of, I don't know, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a rule or whatever, but it's sort of a vibe about not, this culture prizes humility, right? It's like really
Yeah, yeah.
important. And so like this attempt to stand out as an artist or whatever, I see a lot of people who are very talented kind of rein themselves in or hold themselves back, partially because of that humility thing, and partially because you do feel really vulnerable. You are vulnerable when you're putting art in the world. How did you overcome that? Because you alluded to it just briefly, a minute ago
Yeah.
when you wrote for Love Inshallah, but like, how did you get to the point where you were like, fuck it, I'm going all out. I'm gonna I'm gonna say what I need to say in the way I need to say it. Was it just sort of like a switch, or has it taken a long time to get to that point?
I mean, it definitely took a long time to get to that point. But one of it is honestly like this idea that like women should be humble and that we shouldn't
Uh-huh.
like be so outspoken. That's just patriarchy holding us down. That's just like
What?
systematic oppression telling women to shut up and be quiet and let men handle it. And so like with that political framework, then I was like, well, no, I'm not gonna let that happen. I'm not gonna like I think a lot of this like South Asian culture of like just be quiet and let things happen is really like an effort to silence women.
Hmm.
And so I I think once I had that in my mind, and then that freed up the cultural aspect of it. I also think
Yeah.
like the other thing that I think often about is like nazar. Like there's like in South Asian culture, there's always this kind of like idea that
Yes.
like if you say anything out loud, someone's gonna nazar you and then you're gonna get bad luck. And so
Which is
like
like the evil eye, right?
yeah, it's the evil
Yeah.
eye, and like, you're supposed to like not bring that kind of attention to you. And I think that's also just kind of I mean, I think it's silly, but also like maybe a little bit true, but you kind of have to.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. And it's been kind of difficult. And look, I think you're not alone in this. I know many of us who've been in the same boat where you're attempting to do this creative work to find a path of self-expression. And at the same time, it feels like you have to fight on two fronts. I don't know if fight is the
Totally.
right word, you tell me. But
No,
you
it's fight.
have
Yeah, we're at war.
okay. Okay. So on one hand, you have that kind of cultural thing that you belong in this group of people, but you're doing things that may not necessarily make things easy for you. You're rocking the boat a little bit with your art, you're being very vulnerable and all that. And then on the other hand, you have sort of the larger American context as a Muslim where you have people looking at you all the time or talking shit about your people. And so you have to pivot back and forth. It's very, very hard to be in a position like this, not,
Oh, it's awful.
you know, as just a person, but then also as an artist who is
Yeah,
trying desperately to put out into the world, no, no, you're all wrong. This is my experience. This is who I am.
totally. Yeah, all of that. All of it is
Yeah.
awful. It's not easy. Like I mean, like I Valentine's Day cards, I've been making them since like
Taz, start that over because I lost you for a second.
oh, I've been making these Muslim Valentine's Day cards
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
been making them since like 2013. And honestly, I made these cards based on like a Twitter thread. Like I was so annoyed by the media interview questions I was getting after
Uh-huh.
Love Inshallah came out that I started just making fun of the idea because the media questions were like, "Oh, can Muslim men fall in love?" I thought everything was arranged marriage. I was like, "This is bullshit." So then I was like making these like jokey Valentine's Day cards logos on Twitter, but they were all um like I thought politically relevant to what was happening at the moment. So then that
Uh-huh.
turned into like making cards for my friends. And then like uh Amanda and I are part of AMCLI, the American Muslim Civic Leadership Institute. So I went there and everyone there was like, oh, these logos are great. You should turn them into really real cards. So then I started making real cards encouraged by the Muslim community.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this was like 10 years in the making. So I've been making these cards for like 10 years. Every year I put out 6 cards and they're all like politically relevant to whatever's Muslim-y happening in the year.
Yeah.
So I stopped making them in 2021 because no one was buying them anymore. So then I was like, okay, maybe it's come to an end and the culture has shifted. But that doesn't make my work any less relevant. This year, I was teaching at UCLA, and the UCLA, a South Asian UCLA student group asked me to come to campus and like do a Valentine's Day workshop. And then the student group announced it on their social media. The Muslim MSA group got so riled up
What?
at the idea that I wanted to make Muslim cards. They had all this language in like they were commenting on the post saying like, how can this person come in and like make fun of our religion and like don't they understand that like this isn't a joke? And I was like, "Oh my God." And then so the student group canceled my appearance on campus
Oh my God.
3 hours before the workshop. And I was
Oh my
so
God.
pissed because it was not just like that it was Muslim students. It was like Muslim students that weren't alive during 9/11.
Uh-huh.
Like these kids who didn't understand that culture was different and that making the cards like this isn't a current project. Like I understand that like making these cards like in a contemporary Muslim environment I don't know if I believe that completely. I was gonna say like
No, they're
contemporary
perfectly,
environment
I
is
think they're
different, but
amazing. They're hilarious.
I think like I think using jokes as a form of activism is really important. I think there's
Yeah.
like we're not like I don't think the cards were ever punching down. They were all punching up. They were all like referring to something that was politically like relevant to the year that they were put out. So like the fact that like these like freaking MSA youths couldn't like have the understanding and nuances of this, like really, I found it really upsetting. And also that like,
Yeah.
MSA Muslims don't dictate all Muslims. Like there are all kinds of Muslims at UCLA that were deprived of the ability to participate in this art workshop that I have 10 years of experience doing. And like I have 25 years of doing activism in the community. And so like
Yeah.
those kinds of things are just like constant when it like comes to like making art at the intersection of being South Asian, Muslim, and a woman. And
Hmm.
it's just like it just is so frustrating to have to like feel like there's always a new generation of people that are mad at me.
But that means you know what that means, Taz? That means you're an actual artist. Because frankly, I think like art, if it's not provocative, and it doesn't have to be provocative in a way that makes people angry, but you should be provoking
Totally.
feeling, right? Of
Yeah.
some
I was
kind.
like, if you're upset, then my like for this project, like the whole idea was not to make comfort art. This project was
Yeah,
disruptive art. Like
yeah,
I want people's inclination when they see the cards is to be uncomfortable, to laugh awkwardly, and then like when I give them permission to laugh, for them to say like, okay, I could like because we by the time like the middle of like 20 teens was happening, like when it came to like Muslim discourse, everyone was just like was so like like muted. Like no one was like really saying anything real. Everyone was saying like platitude, like, oh yes, like we believe hate crimes are bad. And so like I felt like what the cards were doing were they were taking actual incidences that were happening in the year and we're
yeah,
making shaking things up, right? We're like shaking how people are thinking about things in their head. I
yeah,
think that's what you're right. Like that's what art should be doing. Like we're supposed like real art is supposed to be making people think, and my
yeah,
cards made people think.
yeah, yeah. Yes, I loved them actually. I thought they were very witty and very well done. And there's just so little of that actually in the Muslim community that I've seen, where people are willing to be edgy and a little provocative. And, you know, look, my point of view, and I realize not everyone has it, but my point of view is if this is a thing that's true that you believe that is sort of like this eternal ethos, nobody is gonna fuck it up. Nobody has the power to fuck it up. And all
Yeah.
of these like things that we do around self-expression and around whatever, trying to get people to think and creativity and whatever, those are all only exist to give you opportunities for new perspective and
Yeah.
to think through things that you may already be taking for granted. I mean, that is why art exists, right? Is it's not like you're not there to reproduce the real world. What you're there to do is get people to look at the real world in different ways. And I don't know why that's, and I don't actually think that it's just Muslims. I think there's a lot of people in general in our society who have gotten away from the ability to think and to feel in these different shades and these different
Totally. Like
ways.
everyone's
Yeah.
in a matrix. Everyone like
Yes.
and like I think the other thing that's happening, I
Oh, I lost you.
was thinking
Oh,
I forgot what I was listening to. I was listening to a different podcast about cancel culture and critique and criticism. Like
yeah.
critique helps us make art better, and cancel culture mutes us from making anything. And I think we're like in this matrix way of thinking, like people are just kind of like, no, you have to present. This is what a student said to me on campus. And when we were I was teaching South Asian American communities, and one of the students in my class, she's like, no, Muslims like can't tell like derogatory jokes or make jokes about terrorism. They have to like only present like Muslims in a positive light because we want people to see Muslims as only positive. And I was like, that's so fucked up. Like we're trying
Yeah.
to, I didn't say that in class because I'm supposed to be a professor. I don't think I'm going to teach again. That was like such a crazy experience. Anyways, I think that like we have to have all kinds of narratives and all kinds of experiences when it comes to making art. And we can't like if we just kind of stick to presenting one version, one positive version of what it means to be Muslim or brown or whatever, we're doing such a great disservice in being honest with ourselves and the kind of issues and communities and feelings that we actually have.
Yeah. That's not actually art. That's propaganda.
This
And
propaganda.
if that's what you want, that's fine, but I'm not here for it. Like I
Don't cancel
really
me for it.
yeah. Whatever.
Oh,
Ah, so frustrating. It's so
so
frustrating. I mean,
frustrating.
I love the transgressive stuff, and I realize that a lot of people aren't comfortable with it, but even just across the board, I like things that are provocative. I like things that get me thinking and that I can't get out of my head. I want something to get stuck in my head because it's so impactful. And we
You know
just,
what the other
and I feel like there's a flattening right now across the
yeah.
board of of art, of literature, or whatever, where it just feels like, because I was telling somebody this the other day, I read a lot of back catalog books, stuff that I just find at Goodwill or whatever,
Yeah.
things that I've written in the last, 2, 3 decades. And so much diversity exists in these older books as far as
Oh yeah.
tone and just style and whatever. And then today it feels like everything has just been sort of like homogenized, and
Yeah.
even stuff that is supposed to be inclusive or quote unquote you know diverse, I feel like it has a very homogenous tone to it. It doesn't feel like I'm reading or viewing or engaging with art that is unique from a specific personality. It feels like I'm looking at things that have gone through so many layers of process and editing and whatever that it's just sort of commercialized. Everything feels
Yeah.
commercialized.
It's to
Yeah,
sell, it's to sell, it's to make money. It's for capitalism.
right. Yes. Which, let's be clear, we do want to sell our books.
Yeah, but we don't want to sell it at the risk of uh like what's it called? It's like sanitizing our voice.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So what's on the agenda for you now? You're publishing this book. Are you going to tour with it, or I mean, I'm sure you have to do some
Yeah.
marketing stuff. Yeah.
I would love to tour with it. I just, it's the book got published on a small indie press, so
Hmm.
I think I have to book all my own book tour things. So if anyone wants to have me come out, I can do workshops and I can do a book reading. So that's how I'm treating it. I'm not treating it like it's a small indie book. So I'm gonna have to like hustle and do my own marketing for it.
Yeah, that's
Which is
cool.
fine. It'll be good. I just don't have the budget myself to go on a national tour,
Who does?
unfortunately. Who
Yeah,
does? I mean,
yeah.
the book market's fallen apart.
It
I'm
really, really
also
has.
I'm also making art. I'm still making art. I had my first solo art show last summer.
That's
So
right.
like after that show was done, I kind of like switched. What did I do? No, I kind of like got like really tired after that. So I like stopped making anything just because it was
Mm.
so much work. So I want to get back to making visual art, and then I definitely want to go back to writing on all pandemic. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, those are my like three main art practices. Um, Something else that I've been also working on is um I'm really obsessed with South Asian American history
Uh-huh.
because like when I was doing trainings and workshops, like connecting with South Asian American activism history helped me uh empower myself and empower a new generation of South Asian American activists. So like I would do these workshops, the South Asian American Radical History Timeline that I would do these that workshop around the country. And so I'm taking that project and I'm hyper focusing it on Los Angeles. And I'm making
Oh,
a driving tour audio map so that when you're in your car in LA and you drive to a location, you can just press play and then you'll hear my voice telling you the story of South Asian American history of that location, which
hey,
I'm
that's
really, really
awesome.
excited about. I had a fellowship in the fall with USC's Equity Research Institute to start working on the pilot of that project. And I got funding to continue that project this year. So I'll be, inshallah, in the next year, I'll be able to like have something more substantial to be able to share with people.
That is
The
amazing.
the thing is like finding there's like telling the history is like what I can do. Like I'm a narrative person.
Hmm.
Doing the research on finding like where on the map that story is proving harder than I thought because
Hmm.
I didn't realize addresses changed over 100 years. So that's harder. And then I'm not a tech person, so like I was using Google Map until I got access to USC. Like I don't know that aspect of it. So I'm gonna have to find some tech bro to help me figure out how to put it on some sort of an app.
Yeah, you can easily do that. Like there's a lot of people that you can just hire, like
Yeah,
to do contract work that will I had somebody build me an app once, and it was not nearly as
there's a lot
expensive
of
as you would think.
there's a lot of people that make I didn't know this until I started this project, but there's a lot of people that do walking tours and use like maps to do it, like their
Oh,
phones. So I just need to find like I need to do that aspect of it. But that's the new part. The part that like is not challenging for me is finding the stories.
hmm.
You know what I'm obsessed with is like Atlas Obscura.
Yes.
And
Oh,
so that's
cool.
kind
So
of
you're,
yeah, that's where this idea kind of came from, was like kind of the Atlas Obscura podcast and the Atlas Obscura map.
yeah, that's so cool. I wonder if other cities have something like this.
They
Do they?
do.
Okay.
So when it comes to South Asian American history, there's one in the Bay Area. It's called the Berkeley South Asian American Radical Walking Tour. So they
Hmm.
have a walking tour that goes through Berkeley, and then they're starting one up in San Francisco. And so those are friends of mine, Anirvan and Bernali. So when I was living in the Bay Area, we did a lot of activism together. And then the South Asian American Digital Archives, based in Philadelphia, they have a walking tour that takes you through Philadelphia's South Asian American history. And that group is working on a Harlem walking tour. And so
Oh.
they're working on their walking tour now for Harlem. So all four of those tours are walking tours. But being in LA, there is not one neighborhood here which I would call walkable, or like where South Asian narratives are walkable out here. So I think we're gonna have to do driving.
Yeah, yeah. You need to do limo tours for LA.
Oh my God, it'd be so much fun to get like a big bus to do a tour.
Yeah, it would. That
That
is
would
such a
be
great idea.
that'd be so
Yeah,
much
this
fun.
is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like you just come up with so many random little things that
Yeah.
you're very creative, not just in, applying yourself to this art to your art, but then also to like just thinking about the world. Like you have this very interesting perspective when you look at things and you're like, oh, we could do something with this that other people wouldn't think about. And I really like that about you actually, because I think that's what it means to be truly creative. You're not just sitting there doing a project. You're not just sitting there, you know, doing this discipline that you learned in a classroom. You're a creative person in that you approach life in all aspects with this sort of creative lens. And it just seems to come very naturally to you.
Oh, thanks. That's so nice of you to say.
No, but it's true. It's true. I'm not trying to be nice.
I mean, it is true, I guess.
No, it
I
is.
think the thing about this particular project is like I've only actually been working on it for 12 years, so it doesn't feel like it's new. It's just it started as like a workshop for young people in like 2010, and then like Anirvan was able to take that workshop and turn it into a walking tour for the Bay Area, and I've always been like, well, I want to do something like that here. Like I'm inspired by other people, and it makes me think like, okay, if they did it, I could do a version of that for myself here. I do
Yeah.
feel like a lot of my art and a lot of my writing is very inspired by other people. Like I feel like it's always everything I do, it's always in community or inspired
Well,
by
I think that's
community.
a good thing, right? Like
Yeah.
that's something that I've learned recently because I'm writing a novel right now, and it's the first time I've ever
Yay.
written a actual novel, and it's fiction and it's hard. And you have this idea in your head. I don't know if you do, but like a lot of people do. I did about this, artist just kind of sitting in a little cafe by themselves writing a novel. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a very solitary thing. And to be fair, a lot of writing is solitary. But I only recently realized the value of having partners to work
Oh my
with
God.
as I'm writing. And I, it, I like, it was like a light bulb went off in my soul. And I was like, holy shit, you cannot create alone. Even if
Yeah.
you're a genius, you
You
have
can't
to
do
have
it.
that. Yeah.
Do you have
Yeah.
a writing group?
I have, no, I have uh like three or four partners that I meet with every week,
That's
one on one.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my issue too, is that like I found all of the art projects or all of my projects that you've seen is usually
Yeah.
done with someone else. Like, and that's why my book has not been published, was because it's such a like I have to do it by myself and I have no accountability to myself. But whenever I'm doing a project with someone else, I'm like, oh, I have to do this because I have a deadline coming up with them and they're going to hold me accountable. So I also started doing the same thing too. I like during the pandemic, I had I had a Monday, Wednesday, Friday group that would meet with every morning, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning. And we would write for like until like we got tired. So that was like usually like around like 3 hours.
Hmm.
And then I had another friend that I would meet with on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. And we would check in and say like, are we connecting? Because my issue when it comes to my writing is that like my issue when it comes to my writing is that like when I sit down in front of my computer, I'll just get distracted by my emails and then I'll start writing. But if I'm in
Uh-huh.
a group and we say we're going to do a 25-minute Pomodoro, then like I can't like I'm not allowed to open up my email when I'm doing it with them because they're going to like
Yeah.
ask me afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can get through like any of the solitary art making.
Yeah. I don't think you're alone in that. I feel like that's very common. I mean, I think there's different degrees, right? Like some people really are much more solitary creators, but even if you are that person that just goes into a room, you still need to have like a robust relationship with your editor and like people
Yeah.
around you who can read. I read Stephen King's book on writing, which I really liked. I had never read a Stephen King book, and so
Oh,
I
really?
started with that one. Yeah.
Oh my God, I
And
grew up reading like Pet Cemetery and all of
really?
the scary ones I probably shouldn't have been reading at 12.
But the thing is, so after I read this book, did you read On Writing?
No, I didn't. I
Okay.
don't like reading books about writing, even though I'm teaching a writing course this summer, so I need to I've been recommended a couple of writing like books on writing that I should read before I start teaching writing.
Yeah. It was good.
I'll add this.
Like it had like so there's two parts to it. One is his narrative about himself and his writing journey, right? And the reason I brought that up is because I was going to say, his wife is a partner to him. He talks extensively about how she reads his stuff, and she actually was the one that pulled Carrie out of the garbage can. He had
Oh,
just like thrown it. It was his first novel. He just thrown it away. She pulled it out and was like, "No, no, you need to finish this. It's so good." And and then the other part of the book is more technical. He taught English, high school English, so he actually knows a thing or two about the technical stuff too. Anyway, the whole point being that someone who's even at that level of you know recognition, like this is a person who is well known for being a writer and
yeah.
has published so much and has made a gazillion dollars at it, and yet he relies heavily on the people around him to
Yeah,
give
you
him
have
the feedback
to.
he needs. Yeah.
I mean, who like we want other people to see our work, so we need other people to observe. We're not writing for ourselves.
No, that's
I mean,
right.
sometimes we are writing for ourselves, but like if you want, like if you're making a product that you want to be read by others, you need others to like give you feedback on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get into your own head. Writing is like one kind of creativity where, and the longer the piece is that you're writing, the more you have to keep track of things. It's a lot of mental effort to write
Yeah,
long form. And
especially in
it's just,
fiction.
yeah,
Like, are you enjoying like crafting the fake narrative? Because for me, as being a nonfiction writer, like I'm so like my for me when I write dialogue, it's based on like real dialogue. So for me, it's just like recalling what that person said. But I found that when I was going into doing fiction, I've been working on some screenplays. Is that like when you're like making up what they're gonna say, it's just like there's this kind of this freedom where you're just like, oh man, this is kind of fun. Like
yeah,
we're playing make believe.
yeah. I love it. I love it. I always have, even when I was little, like I loved to make up stories, and that
Yeah,
was just it's just so fun. The
so
only
fun.
thing that's surprising is just the amount of work involved.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It is a lot of work,
It's so
but
much
it's
work and
worth
it's so
it.
long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you like forget like what you were saying in the beginning because you're like,
Yes.
and then you're like, oh yeah, I already planted that. I forgot.
How it like I had this moment a couple weeks ago where I was like, there was some nonsense on social media about somebody leaving shitty Goodreads reviews or something. There's always some scandal. And I was thinking, having attempted this, having, you know, started to write my own novel, I don't think I could ever give somebody a bad review, even if the novel sucked, because
Exactly.
what goes into it is so much. Like it is hard.
It's
It's
so
hard
hard.
not just mentally, it's hard emotionally. It's so hard. And you learn about yourself through this process in ways that you just did not even fathom. And
Yeah.
so I don't feel like, and this is not just writing, like in general, I don't feel like I can go out there and like hate on other people's art, even if
No,
it's
and we
not for me.
we shouldn't. We should never. You know what that reminds me of is
Huh.
like once I started like getting deeper into making art, when I started going to galleries, I would look at art differently. And I think when I
Mhm.
started like, I'm a dabbler of crafts, so like I like learning new skills even though I don't go deeply into it. And I think there's something so beneficial for us to all learn, at least not like learn like you're going to turn this into a profession, but just like dabbling in
Yeah.
different skill sets because it makes you appreciate reading and poetry and visual art. Like I think there's so many people out there who are like uh who say what do they say? They say like, "Oh, I don't do that." Like
Uh-huh.
or they'll look at art and they'll like not understand it. But I think if everyone just like learned a little bit, they the bigger picture is that they're going to learn to appreciate the other artwork that's out there. Like if everyone like wrote a screenplay, they'd be a lot less critical of like the movies that they're
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah. That's a great point. And I think also too, art is for exploring. It's
Yeah.
not for, what we were talking about earlier. It's not there to reflect you to yourself. You can go stare at the mirror if you want to do that. It's not there to confirm all your biases. It's there to help you explore new ways of being in the world, new ways of looking at things, and new ways of exploring yourself too. And so,
Totally.
yeah, like I just like there's just no. I don't think there can be too much because for as unique as each person is, they have the ability to create a unique art form or art, right? And I want that. I want that from everybody at all. I mean, it doesn't even have to be brilliant, but everybody should be
Yeah.
doing it. And to me,
Uh,
that's just the value of it.
yeah, the expression is so important. Like even for like the poetry a day, like the value wasn't that like I wrote a poem for other people to read. For me, it was like that I was in a community of people. We were, we all experienced that day of fasting at the same time. We all, I don't even remember. There was like one year where like Gaza was being bombed, I think. And we
Mm-hmm.
all like saw the same image on TV and we all wrote a poem about the experience of watching that on
Wow.
TV, like coincidentally, like that. There's something about being in community and being able to express yourself just so that like you could, you know, write words to feelings that you were having, and then to have your friends like read it, and then for you to read your other friends, and then you feel like less alone. Like
Yeah.
that's what real art is about. It's like expressing and like to acknowledge and see other people's expressions and that for you guys to like see each other and like know that you're both human at the same time.
Yeah. So true. So true. I really appreciate the fact that you took and have taken and continue to take the time to build space around art and that you extend the invitation. And it's a very non-judgmental invitation. I mean, I've felt that invitation from you
Yeah.
on multiple occasions to engage with some artistic process or some idea. And you do that so free. You open yourself up and you're like, I'm gonna include people in this space and we're gonna do this thing. And it never feels like you're you have these high expectations or that you're trying to compete or create a competitive environment. It's a nurturing environment that lets people have those moments of vulnerability without fear. And honestly, that in and of itself is as important as the art. And so I want to personally thank you for doing that and for being that person because, gosh, the world needs much more of that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, and that doing that is actually like hard in a skill set.
Yeah.
I've been in so many like art spaces where I feel like I'm excluded, I'm not good
Hmm.
enough. I have to pick one art form. I can't be a writer that does visual art. Like there's so many like, or I'm not Muslim enough. There's like so many like
Yeah.
kinds of spaces out there where you're just kind of like you always feel excluded. And I don't know, like our podcast was called Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. I had it with Zara Nurbash,
Hmm.
and we were always about like being at that intersection of like what's like pushing back on like how people think of us as bad, no matter if it was like from like mainstream society or from Muslim society, and just like making a space for ourselves as like that we are good at where we are and that no one's going to judge us except ourselves, I guess. But like so that's kind of been my ethos through my 30s into my 40s is like how do we make space for people to come as they are and to have that room to change.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's so hard. It's so hard to like find that space and it's so hard to make that space. And it's so hard to
Yeah.
like keep being in that space, like as culture and people change, you're just like, oh, it's just like constantly trying to have to like remind yourself and remind other people. It's like, no, 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 we're all constantly changing. We
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
have
We're
to
not,
make space for ourselves.
art is
Oh,
not a product of institutions, right? It's not a product of putting things, in a single place and saying this is how it is. Art is alive and it's moving and it's evolving. And your willingness to facilitate those kinds of spaces is so important and valuable. And I think it's precisely because you've experienced those feelings of being
yeah.
excluded or whatever that makes you so good at it. Because you understand what
Yeah.
you need as an artist, and you understand what's missing when you go into those spaces.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just making spaces where I want to feel comfortable
Yeah,
at the end of the
that's
day.
cool.
Spaces where
I,
like young me would have been like um spaces the younger version of me would have wanted that an older version of me is trying to create for them.
Perfect. Well, that is actually the loveliest segue for me to wrap up. I would love to know if you have any sort of advice, and it doesn't have to be like hardcore anti-advice. Like you don't have to be like, this is the great wisdom off the side of the mountain. But for young people or younger people, or hell, even older people that are thinking of taking up a certain art or dabbling, as you say, what kind of advice do you have for them as far as like unlocking that potential in themselves and getting comfortable with experimenting in an artistic way?
I would say uh just make lots of things and try lots of different things. I think one of the like the ma more mainstream way would be to say practice, but I don't really think it's practicing. It's just like I consider it more like playing, like just
Mhm.
play with different forms and different mediums, and sometimes it'll look good, sometimes it won't look good, and sometimes if you like what you like, but you don't like a different aspect of it, just kind of like go with it. Sometimes like the biggest part of all of art making is playing. I think we forget that. And
Yeah.
sometimes you write a script and you get all your friends to like, act out the voices, do a table read, and then maybe that doesn't turn into a real movie, but at least like you got to play and hear it. Like there's so much playing that needs to happen to make
Yeah.
art. Like you don't need to like it doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't it's this is nothing we're doing is going to be like has to be like mainstream. And if it does, that's just like an accidental like goodness that'll come out of it. The
Hmm.
main point is like the process of getting there and the process of playing to get there.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well said. Well, Taz, thank you for coming on my podcast. It's
Oh my
been a
God, thank you
dream,
for having
actually,
me.
ever since I heard your podcast, which is one of the first podcasts I listened to way
Oh,
back in the day. And
way back in the day.
yeah. And I
You
was
were
like, oh,
around since before that podcast.
yeah,
We would talk about podcasts all the time.
yeah, yeah. I'm just so glad to be able to have this conversation with you and let other people get to know you because I do think you're so cool. And I'll be sure to link to all of your stuff in my show notes so people can find you online.
Yay.
They can buy your book, they can
Yeah.
buy your art, and
Yep.
they can send you encouraging messages. And if anyone sends you mean messages, you tell me and I will fix them.
Okay. Yes.